I know that you've all been prepared for this, but I thought I'd just remind you just the same.
Can you handle that, Blondie?
Game over, man. Game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
It was pure evil.
I want to buy some radio ad time.
Here's Vinny.
And I'm Noel, and I'm here also.
And we got Karen Mack in the bag. And this is Invasion of the Potty Snatchers. Let's get to it, motherfuckers. Alright, Noel, we're back.
Yeah.
And we're saying that we're going to go travel through all these fucking famous horror locations throughout the month of October here on Potty Snatchers. And
Stephen King has sucked us back in already.
Stephen King, motherfuckers. You can't avoid him. Like.
Cannot avoid him, man. He's the Thanos of horror.
Yeah.
Like, he's just absolutely inevitable.
It seems just adding jewels like,
Yeah.
I am inevitable.
Kind of, geez, they can't argue with the CV.
Yeah, and so the first time around we looked at it, chapter 1 and chapter 2, and we went to Derry, Maine, and this time Stephen King, as you said, pulled us back in. This time he's pulled us all the way to Colorado in the Overlook Hotel.
Correct.
Where first of all we see Jack Torrance, played by Jack Nicholson, take his family to spend 5 months in the Colorado fucking isolation, the wilderness up
During
in
the winter when the roads are snowed in.
Yeah, and like it's an iconic movie, and there's like probably no movie that exists today that's been picked apart more than The Shining. People looking for hidden meanings, hidden messages,
man,
all this shit, documentaries about it.
I seen a documentary that went so over the top.
Room 237, is it?
Yeah, I think so. And at the
Yeah.
end where the guy's skiing down, he said, look, his shadow is a minotaur. And I'm like, yeah, Stanley Kubrick knew that if he was in a helicopter and if the sun was like setting over here and it was a guy skiing down, that if you think about it, obviously his shadow would look like a minotaur.
Yeah.
Like this film was so full of symbolism that you didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
Even just watching it, it just bleeds it. It just
and
bleeds
a lot
it.
of people believe that this is Stanley Kubrick's way of admitting that he faked the moon landing for NASA.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
Warner Brothers helped NASA do it. And all this, and Warner Brothers released this movie, and like there's all this hidden symbolism. Danny even wears an Apollo 11 or Apollo 13 rocket or some shit like on his shirt. One like later on in the movie and shit, like, and people have been saying that for years and years and years. But I was like, I look at the clock. I'm like, I have a terrible habit of doing that. I was like, how many years has it been? I look at the clock.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think if I was
it's been like 4 decades.
If that kind of shit was floating around and I was Kubrick, I would just lean into it and literally just fuck with them.
He's the mind fucker's
Oh
mind
my
fucker,
god, that's
isn't
all he did. They're going to discover stuff in 50 years. I mean, the guy's been dead nearly 20.
Yeah.
And they still like psychoanalyze everything he did. He was
he's dead 2 decades. The movie's like 2 decades, even that older than that. Like,
yeah.
And people are still finding.
I mean, 1 year earlier, when you'd be talking 5 decades. I mean, it was 1980, man. It was a long time ago.
Yeah. And it was like the cusp of this new kind of wave of horror.
Yes.
Where even though it held on to the symbolism, the gore was kind of ramped up a bit more.
Yeah.
And like even though it's like 1980, it still had a lot of the stylized version of the 1970s type horror, where like, instead of using music, they use sound effects to set the tone, and as a score like a heartbeat or whatever.
Exactly.
And make it very unsettling.
Or the absence of music.
Yeah.
Suddenly.
Yeah, or just even like it's not even that they use the sounds are usually just very unnerving sounds, and not even just music per se. Like when you watch The Omen, when the dog shows up.
Yes.
And have that weird fucking sound effect playing.
I always loved that, yeah.
I used to find that so unsettling when I was a
That's
kid.
the thing, I found watching The Shining, I found, like despite the fact that I've seen it, not a huge number of times. I've sat down and watched this film start to finish before this week, but maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in drips and drabs, and I've seen it analyzed to Room 237, so on and so forth. But when I was watching The Shining, I was watching The Shining. I mean, I was square.
It just drags you in.
It just drags you in.
Yeah.
And I found myself, when Halloran is showing them around the hotel, Scatman Crowther is his real name. Yeah. Where, but I just thought, like, I bet you that's because you can't help it.
Yeah,
everything is trying to
say. Even in the interview, the tie Jack Nicholson wears, like people have close zoomed in on it, and they can see the maze, like the tie pattern is the same as the maze outside. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like this film is the most analysed movie probably in history. Like,
someday I'm going to make a movie, and I'm going to go so into the Kubrick thing, I'm going to forget to make a screenplay. I'm going to be like, everything. I'm like, wow, that's high concept. And I was like, yeah, but what am I going to make the film about?
Yeah.
I mean, I've ordered the ties, and
Yeah, just like what you should do is watch all the Kubrick's movies and take one thing from each movie and combine it all together and see what happens.
Yeah. The way everyone knows Kanye West is crazy.
Yeah.
Allegedly, and the first time I knew it is apparently he wasn't in Keeping Up with the Kardashians because he wished they had taken more of a Kubrick approach, and that was it. I mean, he should have been institutionalized.
Well, he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
The
man's out of line, but he's not wrong.
I think you're in the wrong fucking wheelhouse, pal.
Yeah.
But anyway, this film, we're in it, and I don't know. When you're watching it, even though you know everything that's coming, you do find yourself scene by scene. The flow of this film is phenomenal.
Yeah, and the way he kind of parses up the film as well, that like the way he gives you the information, you're actually sucked into every single scene in a totally different way.
Yes, like Ullman explaining, the last guy might have gone a bit crazy. Yeah. But I have a good feeling about you, Jack Nicholson. Because he had Jack Nicholson was supreme in this role.
Yeah.
But he had an intensity to him from the get-go.
Yeah, and that's one of Stephen King's issues with the film itself.
Really? Because he was supposed to be
because he said
very docile.
You read the book, and I haven't, but seemingly Jack Torrance goes gradually insane. Whereas Stephen King said from Kubrick's version of it, he felt like that he was
teetering.
Exactly. He was already kind of on the way.
Even on the car ride there, and then he's in between Wendy and Jack. That he's already got this God, if they don't just shut the fuck up kind of body language, if you like. And,
because I think he has what's the word I'm looking for? A deluded sense of grandeur about himself.
Yes,
he feels like he should be this #1 best-selling author. Or whatever.
The only thing the only thing stopping him is not the fact that he actually isn't a great author. It's the fact that he just needs some silence.
Yeah, exactly. People just keep getting in his way.
Exactly.
Distractions, and what's the only distraction that's left now is his family. Yeah. And that's the whole thing about it, isn't it? Though?
Absolutely. I was saying this to you earlier. I'm going to use it now because I think it's a good sound bit. Is that this film is kind of like, well, if these walls could talk and the walls can talk.
Yeah, and all they say is horrific things.
And all they see is horrific things. I mean, India, a slaughter of Indians, way back when, and then just an awful lot of horrible shit that the hotel just absorbs and stacks on top of itself.
Yeah. What movie was that in? I believe. When bad things happen in a place, that piece of that.
I know that. Yeah,
I can't remember what movie.
But that's it. Just the energy of it or something is absorbed and it just stays there.
Yeah, because there is certain places that just make you feel different in other places.
I have been in places, and I remember thinking, I need to not be here.
Yeah, and I'm wondering though, and the thing is, because some places I was about to go against you, but I was about to say, I wonder, is that a case of psychosomatic kind of thing?
Of course.
Yeah, but certain places you don't know of their history, but they still give you the fucking creeps.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that, is that just the ambience or the look at the place? But there's certain places I've been in that have creeped me out. I've been in creepy places, whatever, but there's certain places that I don't know the history of. The place I grew up, where I lived when I was a kid, grew up, that gave me the creeps, but I knew the history. Some dude killed himself outside the house, so that was probably psychosomatic. You're just giving this kind of thing.
Course. You're giving life to it.
Yeah. Excuse me. But you're giving that kind of thing in your mind, and you're a kid, and you grow up, and you hear this thing, and you watch a lot of horror movies growing up.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But there's places I've been to that I've no idea what the history are, but I felt very uncomfortable or unsettled there. Yeah. And I don't know if that's just the atmosphere that it gives you, or if there is an energy there. Because I, as I said to a minute ago, I don't really believe in an afterlife. You know what I mean?
Same as,
which is unfortunate. I'd love to be deluded and believe in fairies and all this grand stuff. But I think I don't know, whatever it is. Maybe if we are all energy, there's some places that maintain or hold on to this kind of weird badness that's whatever's occurred, and the Overlook Hotel is kind
of that to the nth degree.
Literally,
And through the
stop stealing my thoughts now.
And through The Shining,
word for word, I was going to say that.
Were you? Yeah. Through The Shining, we got to see it in quite a literal sense. The twins and the previous caretaker and showing up, and Jack walking through the ballroom is always going to be the most iconic scene. It's so vibrant and it's full of life.
It's where he goes back and he meets Slade for the second time, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And I think essentially, especially, a lot of this you kind of realize from the second film, which we're not going to get into yet, but it was essentially it was somebody confronted with their own darkness, and Jack had so much in it that he just fell into it, and then he was still just he had a literal light in him called The Shining, and B, he was so innocent that he was able to fight it. Yeah. And I think when
he was guided by Scatman.
He was guided by Scatman.
But
And then Wendy, I think Wendy was, in her own way, was going crazy.
Yeah, is that her real accent?
I have no idea.
It sounded like a really fake Southern Belle accent that she was trying to put on.
I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I'd say close enough to it because Kubrick, like, you know, the famous "Here's Johnny" thing. I think they shot that, and I mean, if I'm right, the number was like 137 or something, something bonkers.
Yeah, no, he was known for that. Kubrick,
essentially, like, she was in an actual state of torture.
Yeah.
Where just having to do it she was having a panic.
Yeah.
Essentially, we're looking at a woman having a panic attack.
Yeah.
Which is. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I suppose if you're going to look at it from the cold effectiveness, it's an amazing scene. But obviously, I'm not going to condone that sort of thing. But I think if her accent was not her accent, I just don't think Kubrick would have let it fly. But I don't have the answer.
Yeah, no, because like even Shelley Duvall, who's gone on and said that because of The Shining, she's suffered mental issues throughout her life and stuff like that. Like, you know, but like,
I mean, she went to do I think Popeye within a year or something like that. And you're just thinking, you thought you forget she was just an actress. She didn't sign up for like, she isn't like, you know what I want to do? I want to be an extreme actress. I want to be somebody who throws themselves into the absolute insane thing. She's just an extremely talented woman who got the job. Yeah. But that didn't mean she signed up for.
But on the other hand, though, Stanley Kubrick is a renowned director at this stage. And everybody knows his style. He's made 2001: Space Odyssey at this stage. He's made Clockwork Orange. You know what I mean? Like, you know.
God, I suppose if I'd watched A Clockwork Orange, yeah.
You know, he's not very like a kid's glove kind of director. Everybody, you must have known. Everybody knows it. Like I lived most of my adult life decades after he's already died, and I know about Kubrick. So if I was living during the time of Kubrick, I think
the height of his powers.
Yeah,
the height of his powers.
I would have known about his methods, like especially if I'm in the industry.
Because going into The Shining, he was already a legend.
Yeah.
And this is when he probably...
And he wanted to make his masterpiece, probably, like...
Yeah,
even though Space Odyssey probably is.
Space Odyssey probably is, but The Shining...
the ending,
The Shining told us that there's no purview of film that he just couldn't do.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he's had the grounded... film with a storyline and a plot that's not like he's been to space, he's grounded himself, and anyway he's been in The Shining.
Yeah, and he's did Full Metal Jacket after this and everything. It's ridiculous, like
that dude. I mean, we should have been giving up our steam, our life force to keep that fucker alive. We really should have. Our little plebs.
Don't come at my steams.
Yeah. But tell me, as this film progressed, did you think it had any weaknesses?
No, not really. Like, literally, if you look at the color palette, even like everything about the movie is delicious. Like,
I can still picture the mat. Yeah, like when Danny's on his little.
Even the main lobby when it's all like reds and whites, and she was like, remember she goes there and she's like, oh, pink and gold's my favorite color, and all this. Like everything just looks so fucking rich, expensive. You know what I mean? But everything looks so of its era. But also, you can see the 70s runoff in it. You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah, and that's one thing I loved about The Shining, because like I wrote an article a while back about 80s horror, and how I finished it off was I talked about how The Shining kind of encapsulated as I mentioned a moment ago, how it encapsulates the 1970s style, stylistically, the way it's kind of done, but it has this kind of 1980s feel about it. Like it's like the new wave of horror is about to happen. More gore, more jump scares.
Higher concepts.
Yeah, higher concept, exactly. Like, you know what I mean? Before we have, you know, the generation that turned out to be the slasher generation, like, you know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? But this is what he was kind of leaning towards, like this kind of higher concept horror that not only relies on gore, but also relies on suspense. And it's nearly borderline a thriller more than a horror, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're normally the best horrors, in my opinion.
Of course. I think, like, sometimes you watch something and nobody wants to be murdered, I think, is a very basic kind of concept in films. So you can just lean into that and do that quite easily.
Yeah.
But then you have something where, what if you went crazy?
Yeah.
What if you went absolutely like, what if you were brought to the brink of absolute madness and then died? And that's what this film, like, I mean, when you're watching Jack, you kind of think, like, the thing is, when I was watching this, you're kind of wondering, who would I have been in this scenario? Would I have been a Wendy, who just wanted to survive, cared about the kid, or would I have been a Jack? Because again, it turns you on yourself.
Yeah.
And I suppose now that I'm saying, and this is an original thought I've had, it was you to put me on the track when you were saying that was one thing that Stephen King hated, is that it probably would have worked maybe if the guy did go in an absolute, like, docile, real gentle, salt of the earth guy, and Jack did go in with this intensity. But at the same time, would I have, if I was exposed to all the darkness in me, would I overcome it? or would I lean right into it? Because it was also about his alcoholism. It was about him as a person. It was about him realising his shortcomings when that classic scene when Wendy walks up to the typewriter. By the way, same brand of typewriter that they used in some of the concentration camps when the Nazis were registering the Jewish prisoners.
Oh, seriously?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Fucking hell.
That's the thing. There's nothing. The most mundane thing, the type of lamp used or something. You know what I mean? Like the type of carpet, everything. But when you realise all he has is all work and no play, and it turns out that at that point you realise the Emperor has no clothes, and it's everyone else's fault.
And man, like when he goes to Wendy when she offers him the sandwiches, I was like, what an ungrateful asshole. And then I was denying Lorraine. I was like, how come when I'm writing you never come in and offer me sandwiches?
Yeah.
It's like, where's my sandwiches?
And then she does it, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah. But I'm in here, and you hear me going, don't come in here.
But I do. I think it made me think of people that you've met in your own life, and nothing's ever their fault.
Yeah.
Jack was that.
Yeah, there's something I just like, a few things I don't like in this world, like when it comes to addiction, but I hate degenerate alcoholic, and I hate degenerate gambler, because they never own up to their own mistakes.
Yeah.
Never. And
if only this one thing that went wrong for me went right for me.
Yeah.
And like,
and it's never anybody's fault. It's never their fault. It's everybody's fault but their own, like, you know. And like, but like, and this is what Jack Nicholson was in this movie, though. He was like a degenerate alcoholic, and he was trying to make excuses for what he did with Danny, and you know, like, because he abused,
and Danny was a sweet kid.
Yeah, like, and like, I just thought it was so weird. It's like, Tony is like, the dude lives in my mouth. I'm like, okay, weird. okay, Danny.
But that's it. That's a trope. And that is that. With kids, you can give them all of the power. They can, like Poltergeist, etc., where they can see into the beyond, and they can tell that the house is haunted or that there's ghosts or that something evil is approaching. Yeah. And kids in their imaginations, dogs barking at, like, you know, benevolent evils that you haven't discovered yet. That's a trope.
Yeah.
With Danny, it was no different, but I think it was done at a higher concept in a more intelligent way.
No, move your mic back somewhere. No, away from you.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
No, sorry.
But I thought, like, I mean, when you look at it, it's kind of from the perspective of Danny, but a lot of it doesn't really feel like it's about Danny. It feels like it's about Jack.
Yeah, no, I think that's
and Danny was the voice, I think, that made us fear.
Is that different than the book? Like, who's the focal point of the book? Do you remember? I'm sure it's probably been ages since you read it.
It's been 20 something years since I read it. But the book.
So in your mid-50s,
but the book did just make you feel like a fly in the wall. So it was kind of about everybody. But Jack's descent into madness was the thing that stood out to most of me. And that's saying something, because you had a kid with superpowers.
Yeah, is Wendy such a whiny bitch in the book as well?
But she doesn't come across as but like, I mean, you know, there's a couple of her fears were probably fair enough, you know.
But like, seriously, no. But like, I don't know. Like, I know you can't really change a classic, but like, Jesus Christ, Shelley Duvall, it wrecks my head every time I watch this movie, man. Every time.
There is nothing that you can actually come at Shelley Duvall for, because when you're working with Kubrick, that's Kubrick's film.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
You are just
that accent.
Well, you are in the most pure sense an actor.
Yeah.
This is what this scene is. You are this. This is your motivation. This is what I want from you, and she delivered.
For me, though, with that movie, is the only person I see in the entire movie that feels like they're playing a part is Shelley Duvall.
Did you really feel that way? I can't.
To me, she feels like she's acting.
I see what you
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when I watch it, like when I watch the interview scene, those guys that are interviewing Jack Nicholson, to me, I was like, that could be anybody. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what, when I look at a part, when I look at a scene, I'm like, that should be, like, my mindset should be, that could be anybody.
I do remember, you know, this just before Jack had to, you know, go out the door with the axe.
Yeah.
And he's, this is just behind the scenes, you know, and like actual crew are walking in around him, and he's literally standing in the room going,
I see that,
Jesus, fuck. And people are walking around, and he couldn't give a continental shite about them.
Yeah.
He is absolutely in the zone.
Yeah.
And that's like, I've always thought, could I act? Everyone's thought that.
Yeah.
Of course. Such
I
glamorous.
definitely know I couldn't, yeah.
I think I could to a degree.
Yeah, I definitely
I think it's definitely a skill I'm not claiming to have.
Yeah.
And I've never done it. Jesus, like, this is like, and I can definitely play this guitar solo or something. No, it's stupid. But,
I just laughed
but that degree,
yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Hell no.
I couldn't.
Just letting yourself go to that Daniel Day-Lewis degree is no. I just know I can't. It's like asking if I can fly. I just simply can't.
And to do that 70 times or 80 times.
Yeah, and never lose that intensity. In fact, up it somehow, even though you're fatigued.
Yeah.
Even though the coffee's wearing off.
And that's probably what Stanley Kubrick wants, though, with these multiple takes. He wants it, literally, the scene to literally weigh
everything
on you,
about
take a
everything
toll
he
on you.
did for me was the man was it was his legacy.
Yeah.
You know, it was his legacy, and that this can't be. It'd be like, it's like when Stephen King is probably writing a book, but he gets to create that world. It's not as if there's any interference. But I think Stanley Kubrick is trying to write a book, and people are people. They've got different feelings and different interpretations, and he just wasn't having it. He would know my interpretation.
Yeah, exactly. So I said to you before we start recording, it says Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
And every time you talk about The Shining, you end up talking about Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah.
Like if we talk about Avengers, or if we talk about Die Hard, or we talk about absolutely any film, the directors come up, of course.
I would say The Shining.
Stanley Kubrick gets talked about as much as the actors.
Yeah, I think The Shining is actually more linked now in the social consciousness to Stanley Kubrick than is Stephen King even.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like, which is odd, because like Stephen King being such a prolific, world-class, world-renowned horror author, to have one of his works.
He's Stephen King.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we made a joke about him being inevitable, because Stephen King, and even in 1980, he was a titan.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he'd already had like fucking at least probably half a dozen or a dozen books under his belt.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, you know,
and what had been made. I mean, I know Carrie had been made. Cujo, Christine,
Firestarter.
Was
that one of his?
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. But that's the thing. It's like that's the thing. I think that's one of the reasons Stephen King, obviously.
I think Christine might have been later.
I think Stephen King would give. Like, obviously, he's never really complained much about the films and stuff like that. Yeah. He's been very supportive. But this one is obviously, your man tried to. It's like maybe Game of Thrones or something. Like, yes, it's based on this, but no, we're doing our own thing. Yeah, it wasn't like thanks for that. That's a good idea, and now I'm going to take it and run with it. And
we're going to use your world as an outline.
We're going to use your world. Yeah, but every interpretation was just led Kubrick. Yeah, but it was a great. But the thing is, I know I didn't write the book, so I don't have personal investment. But I loved that film. Yeah, but the point you made about Jack Nicholson, I have to say, is after resonating with me. Yeah, that the intensity he went in with. Yeah. I could imagine
that's not my point. It's Stephen King's point.
It's Stephen King's point. But like when you watch the Made for TV movie,
I've never seen it.
Which I've only ever seen once. It was years ago. But I remember like Jack went in a little like more docile. And dissented.
I think I should watch it just for this.
Yeah, just like because it's supposed to probably feel like it could happen to you. Yeah, like you could be a loving father and husband, and trying to provide for your family. Far-fetched. Yeah, far-fetched. I'm trying to build a world. Yeah.
Stay with me.
But at the same time, this film is almost a fuck you from Kubrick, because he just wasn't having it.
Yeah, and like daily there was rewrites. Like daily, like as far as I know from the documentary, like he was constantly changing. Like so.
Oh yeah, because even he would go, you know what? No.
Yeah, because
that didn't feel right in application.
Like,
in application, yeah.
But I think, like, you know, it probably got further and further away from the source material. Is what I mean by daily rewrite. So probably at one stage, maybe this is where Stephen King's anger might come from. Maybe at one stage there was a script that was quite similar to the source material, and within the process of bringing it from, you know, concept script to the feature, that maybe the tone changed very, like, massively, and maybe that's where Stephen King.
Yeah, you can imagine reading the script, like when he's interviewed by Ullman for the job, and he's told, like, you know, this is great scene, but you can, if you're reading that, it's probably, this is what Jack says, this is what Ullman says, this is what Jack says, and then you're going, but you didn't realize that Jack Nicholson was going to be sitting there with a shit-eating grin on his face, you know, and that he was going to have this, that he was going to be chewing up the scenery. You don't know that, you're just reading.
Yeah, and you know Kubrick wants that intensity because he wouldn't cast Jack Nicholson otherwise.
You want to cast Jack Nicholson.
You know what I mean?
Like, nobody is ever under any illusions. Yeah. When, like, it wasn't like, I think he overplayed the Joker a little bit there. Yeah. You think? You know what I mean? Like,
well, you did hire Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everyone tries to rate Jokers, and I just think we got three completely different Jokers.
Yeah, I think two good ones and one terrible one. Well, I know there's 4 Jokers.
Is there?
About Jared Leto.
Is there?
Did I forget about it? Did I? But like, because the thing is, like, you, as you mentioned a moment ago, is like you can't talk about The Shining without talking about Stanley Kubrick, and that's what we've done. Like, but like when you look at the movie itself, it's so iconic. And you were talking about the opening scene with the interviewer, and like the switch back and forward with Jack's interview and Danny back at home. And then this is where we can
Danny in the mirror.
Yeah, we're talking to Tony, and this is the first time we see his gift of The Shining.
Because he knows he got the job.
Yeah.
He knows he got the job, and then the phone call comes in and confirms it, yeah.
Yeah, and this is where Danny starts asking Tony, why don't you want to go there? What is it that you don't want to go there? Tell me. And Tony goes, I don't want to tell you. And then when he does finally tell him, which is obviously just, him allowing his subconscious, his mental abilities to take over, and he sees the iconic bloody elevator.
I think Danny was a power source for all of the
like a radio, I think, wasn't it?
That was there. So I do think that Danny, like, through no fault of his own, exacerbated everything.
Yeah.
Because they were able to kind of pervert his gift. And you even see, like, when he goes into you can see that the building is feeding off him in a way.
Yeah.
And that's emphasised in the second film. That it's just...
Well, Scatman can see them too. Dick...
Halloran.
I was going to call him Carruthers.
No, that's
his real surname. Yeah. I was like, where am I getting Carruthers from?
And you have to talk about the fact that he took an intercontinental flight from like Florida to get hit in the stomach with an axe.
Yeah, I said, like, literally that's one thing I was said to you before we were recording, but like that's the one thing that like always annoyed me about this movie. When I was rewatching, I was like, should I just fast forward the Dick Halloran try like that? Yeah, it's like, do I really need to see him at home with all like he's got amazing artwork.
Yes,
like those women with the giant afros. Oh my lord, bring back the afros, ladies. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah,
bring them back. No, like I was like looking at it because when it was released in Europe initially, it was 2 hours long, and now it's 2 hours and 24 minutes long, and that's what it was when it initially released in America and stuff.
I think that's what I seen originally. Yeah, because we weren't there in 1980. By the time we actually got around to this film, it was on TV quite often.
Yeah, and any time though I see a movie, when I see extended cuts or whatever, I always try to look at what could they have cut away initially. And I was like, I'm definitely thinking they could have cut away at least 10 minutes of Scatman Carruthers traveling from Florida to Colorado just to get murdered.
Just to up the body count, because it doesn't have a huge body count.
Yeah, I just think that's what it is.
Yeah, and I didn't need it, to be fair, because that wasn't the concept. Yeah. Because all you need is characters that you're engaged with and something happening to them. Because it's not...
It's not descent into madness.
Exactly, and I loved when a horror film decided that we're not trying to take on Friday the 13th here. They had 13 kills in the second film.
But this was made before Friday the 13th.
It was actually. It's a bad example. Yeah. Let's say Halloween. Yeah. Let's say Halloween had 6-7 murders. Well, maybe we should have 9. No, that's not that's not storytelling. That's the Michael Bay, maybe more explosions.
The original Halloween only had 3 or 4 murders, I think.
Yeah, well, the original Halloween had the couple of murdered, the sister that was murdered at the start.
The sister died at the start, and then
that guy he sticks to the wall.
But the babysitting killings is what I'm kind of looking at, because it was like initially it was going to be called the babysitter killer or whatever, and I think he only kills like 3 or 4 people.
Yeah,
he kills like Annie's boyfriend and the couple that are banging as well.
Yes.
So I don't know if he kills anyone else outside of that, does he?
And this was kind of left all that behind, because it was never it had tropes. Well, I suppose maybe you might even call them tropes in 1980. Yeah. It's definitely stuff that's been leaned into since.
Of course, yeah.
It broke ground, but it still had stuff that you just recognize.
And if those tropes existed, they probably existed in in the literary world.
Yes.
With the likes of Stephen King, and that's why his movies were getting adapted so readily, even back in the 70s and 80s. Like,
I'm just glad that they didn't have another kid that was a teenage girl that didn't want to leave her friends behind. Oh my god! Like if they never have another teenage girl that's upset about the move, I will be happy.
This is the creme de la creme of horror, haunted house movies, though.
It is.
Like, there's a few, like, there's very, like, maybe The Changeling or something. Even that.
No, but like, there's hundreds of deaths in the concept. You don't see what happened to the Indian colonies. You don't see every death that happened to the
Indian colonies thing. Is that mentioned in The Shining or Doctor Sleep?
It's mentioned in The Shining. I think when they're giving them a tour of the grounds. Yeah. I think.
She goes, are they real Native American? Is that real Native American artwork or something?
Yeah.
And he was like, it's Navajo or something, I think he says, isn't it? And a lot of people believe that's filled with symbolism if you look closely at the artwork.
Oh, God, yeah. And I think that's what the elevator scene was about. The amount, because it's not just isolated killings, the amount of blood spilled there, you drown in quite, it's quite, in that way, maybe a quite obvious metaphor, but literal enough blood.
Was that in the book?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole Indian burial ground and all that.
Yeah, that was all, was all mentioned, I think, yeah.
And like, do you think a lot of this movie resonates with the American guilt they feel over
I think it touches upon it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like the fact that it didn't ignore it. And, you know, I remember somebody tweeted a joke, it's like, oh, all these bad things happen in America. It's almost like the entire place is built on an Indian burial ground.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, fucking hell, like, you know. It's, but I do. I think that it's like, it's basically a hotel that should have never been built.
Yeah.
And it brings back to this, like, concept we were saying, like, you ever walked into a place and you went, no, there's bad juju here, like, you know. And this would be that to the nth degree, and that was, and then you got to see it through psychic means. You actually got to see. Again, it's like if the walls could talk, the walls were able to fucking talk.
Yeah, and it was like a place where the rich could be go there, be like secluded, like, you know, live their decadent lives and all this kind of shit. And it's literally built on the
light, pouring joy at the
exactly
at the Overlook Hotel.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, and it's kind of like the epitome of, or the, like, as we said a minute ago, like with the nth degree. But like this is kind of the nth degree of what the Western culture kind of did to Native Americans, killed them and built their own lifestyle on top of it or whatever. Like, and something that was probably sacred to them is now just being treated as another place, like, you know, the fuck or fornicate or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, to get drunk, do drugs, fuck furries.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know, that kind of way, like, you know, and they're suffering for their sins because, like, obviously maybe the place was cursed after the massacre.
And your arrogance, the fact that nobody cared, the fact that all that decadence that came afterwards was apathy, kind of, in a way, so disrespectful.
Yeah.
Just to have that complete apathy towards it. And it was like, it locked them in for their sins.
Yeah.
And again, it was it fed on your darkness. And I think if you have enough darkness, it fed on you entirely.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of these people still kind of walk the hallways, you know, great party and all that kind of stuff.
Isn't it though, like in every haunted house movie though, it's nearly always the father turns evil. And the spirit communicates with the kid.
Oh yeah, and the spirit communicates with the kid. Babadook and Insidious and
The
all
Conjuring,
Poltergeist.
God, yeah, don't. The father just didn't turn evil in The Conjuring, which I liked.
Yeah,
he was just never there.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Poor bastard. That's half my rate.
But I don't know. Like all in all, like this is what I was saying to my partner Sheila. I was saying, tell me what the Shining was about 100 words. And she did a good job summing it up about, you know, a man who he takes a job as a caretaker and he's thinking, now I can use this downtime to finally finish my novel, and then he descends into madness. And I remember going, you know, you're very much so talking about it from the perspective of Jack. It's called Shining and Danny has The Shining. Yeah. And even now when we delve into it, we've talked so much about Kubrick and so much about Jack, and it's because it was such a Kubrick film, but also because Jack chewed up the scenery and Danny was just kind of this innocent, caught in the middle of it all, but experiencing. He
was our window into the horrors of the world.
But the actual horror of it, we seen through his eyes. Yeah, the woman that
even though Stanley Kubrick told him he was making a different movie or something, wasn't it? Yeah, and he didn't see the full cut. He was 17 years old. Or something.
No, God, no, how could he? You know, Jack, seeing you know, Wendy tells him about the woman in the bath, and then when he goes in, she's this beautiful woman, and he starts kissing her and things like that. But then when you realise that he had descended into madness when he kind of like when he walks through the ballroom and Grady spills a drink on him and helps him clean it off, and he's just like, okay.
It's apricot, sir.
Yeah,
it's apricot. It's best to get it out now, sir. It tends to leave a stain. That guy Grady, man, like, you know, like that's very little I can quote from him on air.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know,
not a good guy.
But that was it. You could see that, especially that Jack had just when the hotel finally was doing the impossible. Yeah, he'd already leaned into it. Yeah. He was already mad. He already kind of belonged to the hotel.
Do you think it was a case of as soon as he accepted that drink, and that's him giving it?
Oh yeah. He's 5 months. I think he was supposed to be clean, and he had hurt Danny. I think dislocated his shoulder. Yeah, and again, it was once he gave back, because his demon going in was alcoholism. Yeah, and when he gave into that and was happy enough for Jack Daniels, he had to give it up.
He gave into the Overlook.
He completely gave into the Overlook, and the Overlook owned him. Yeah. And at that point forward, he went just completely.
But the thing is, he always fed
that was it. He was crazy instantly from that. I'm just going to bash your brains in.
Yeah.
I'm just going to bash right the fuck in.
I'm not going to hurt you, Andy. I'm going to hurt you.
I'm going to bash your brain. And she, her like holding the bat like halfway up for some reason.
Because people are saying that was like take 67 or something, and that was the last take, and that's the one they used.
Really?
And so she's just fucking exhausted.
Oh god.
But it's clear to see that Wendy taught Danny how to hold a knife.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? He's holding it backwards.
Red
Red ram. Do
ram.
you think that's actually because he sees it backwards?
Exactly. You see it
Maybe
in the mirror.
that's why he's holding it like backwards.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Absolutely nothing can you just take.
You know what I mean?
Like,
In
a way, it's amazing, and in a way, it's quite fatiguing.
Yeah. The film itself.
Yeah, like just in that sense.
The symbolism.
The first time I watched it and I was amazed by it. But then when you have conversations with people, and especially pre-internet, before everything was just you were like, did you know this? Did you know this? Actually, this was this, and you're like, oh, and then you watch it again, and you're like, oh, I wonder, room 237. What does 237 mean? And then,
well, 237 was only chosen because it's 213 or something in the book.
Is it?
And the reason the room 237 was chosen because the place that the Overlook Hotel was based on, the real place that still existed today, have a room 213 or 217, whatever the real one was. And they didn't want this whole thing where people come in there to stay in the room, or people think the room was haunted.
Dark tourism, I think.
Yes, so they didn't actually have a room 237. So I think that's why the number was chosen. I think it's different in the movie than the book.
That's interesting. See, that's what I mean. And there's no end to learning about this. There's just absolutely no end to it.
Yeah.
But all in all, you do see when Jack starts to go crazy and actually comes from his family, that you finally had somebody succumb to his darkness, and then it kind of became a classic horror film.
Yeah.
In the sense that now there's a dude with an axe who's trying to kill you. I mean, that was done.
Yeah.
That was old hat, even in 1980.
Yeah.
But it introduced to us in such a slow burning, but like omnipotent kind of way that it just felt like shit.
Yeah.
That now we've a slasher on our hands, even though there's this quite obvious benevolence behind it, but then you just had Jack being Jack.
Nobody stares off into space more menacingly than Jack Nicholson.
No.
Holy shit, the part with the turtleneck.
Oh, fuck.
When they're outside and he's just like...
Yeah, oh, fuck, yeah. And Danny, of course, you have to talk about the genius near the end of this film, where Danny doubles back through his own footsteps in the maze.
Yeah.
And
before we get into the final chase sequence, do you want to go take a quick break?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to go for
All right, cool. So, all right, folks, this is Invasion of Potty Snatchers. I'm your host, Vinnie Green.
I'm your host, Noel and Vinnie.
And we'll be back after the break. And now, word from our sponsors. And we're back from the break. Thanks for staying with us. If you're still here, I'm your host, Vincent Green.
I'm your host, Noel and Vinnie.
Right, this is Invasion of the Potty Starters. And Noel, throughout October, we said we're going to go to all these famous places. We already said we started in Derry, Maine. Now we're back in the Overlook. In the first half of the movie, we talked about Stanley Kubrick a lot. We talked about Jack Nicholson a lot. We talked about the meanings, the documentaries, all the symbolism, all this cool shit. But what we kind of ignored a little bit was the story itself. And this is what I want to kind of jump into for the second half. We talked about a lot of how the film was perceived and how it was taken, but I want to talk about the story, right? Cool. Even though the story is super well known, so we don't need to fucking go scene by scene like we used to do back in our Spider fan heyday.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Young and wet behind the ears.
Yeah, until Noel was like, kind of feels like we're describing films to the blind, dude. You know what I mean? Like, which is nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. No, that there is.
Yeah, but we're just like, what he means, like, we're describing movies to people that have already seen the movies.
Exactly.
So like it makes no sense to do it like the way we're describing it. But like so Noel, like what did you think of the way this movie is constructed? Because like we talked about Jack's very rapid descent into madness in comparison to the book, where you say it's more gradual and
it seems softer.
Yeah.
Like it's right. That intensity of Jack, there is a fair point.
Because of Jack Nicholson though.
Yeah, because of Jack Nicholson. I mean but like I mean he showed up and did the job he was signed up to do.
Yeah.
The story, it's a couple, like if you were to say what the story is a couple of things, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's like three like straight stories that mesh together into this kind of overlap of craziness.
Yeah.
That you would have to sit there. Like it's a hard enough film to describe to somebody because it doesn't just have the classic start, middle, end.
Yeah.
It's the descent into madness juxtaposed against the wife trying to kind of steady the ship, juxtaposed against a child who's just learning so much about himself and these abilities that he has. Well, I think that if you were to try and simplify it, I think it's the story of the hotel.
Yeah.
I think that's what The Shining is about. I think it's about the hotel itself.
And what did you think of what do you think of like Jack? Like pretty much we were like his relationship with Wendy. Did you think they seemed like a natural kind
No,
of
God,
couple.
no. God,
Like-
no. When you're looking at them, you kind of find it hard to remember, like, what was the good times? What was their first date like? You know what I mean?
Like, how did they even meet?
Yeah, how did they meet? Does he buy her flowers?
Yeah, how
You know
did
what I
that,
mean?
like, it doesn't seem like a relationship that could progress from first date all the way through coupling, like, for
to breeding.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, all the way through being married. And maybe do you think it's the very fucking common case of he's domineering, she's subservient or whatever.
Yeah.
And she just kind of, that's the kind of woman he wanted, and she just goes along with things.
Well, I mean, she
Yeah.
definitely didn't. I mean, she didn't really have the backbone. Let's just say, not to say that the position she's in would be
Yeah.
terrifying, but it got when it was even when it was like going to get borderline fatal.
Yeah.
She was still just terrified. She was
Yeah.
kind of the
Well, she did knock him out and lock him in the pantry.
she did, and that was kind of awesome.
She won then, technically.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, not only does Jack die at the end and whatever, but like even in that moment, Grady had to free Jack from the pantry. So he, like, I remember even he was like, "Your wife's your wife's got more fighting than we thought she had," or something. Like, I think just like Jack was just like shit defending himself.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
I've never seen a
But
more poorly swung baseball bat in my entire life.
but I think well, like, he had never had any reason to fear her.
Yeah, it's the first time she ever stood up for herself.
Never had any reason to fear. She was kind of so. He must have seen her as being so hapless,
Yeah.
and delicate, that he just thought that this was when he finally came for them, it was just like chopping wood.
Yeah.
I think he just thought it was going to be a literal easy job. But then there's always a thing where get between a woman and put her into mama bear mode.
Yeah.
Getting between her and the child, it's a different place. But she still like.
What film was that in recently? Was that in Shining as well?
What?
He talks about, them stories about a woman and a child's trapped underneath a car and the mother.
Was that in The Shining?
Was that in
Did
The
they talk
Shining?
about it?
I
I
don't
don't think so.
Fuck, it was in something I've seen recently.
I know,
I've
yeah.
been doing that 61 Days of Horror challenge on Horror
So you're
Resurrection.
drowning in
the horror,
yeah,
so
yeah,
I have no
exactly.
idea what I'm watching or what I'm quoting. Like, even earlier on I was quoting something, I can't remember what the movie was. There's two
Great
men.
performance by a very young Keanu Reeves. I believe, in The Shining.
Let me check my Keanu Reeves. Keanu.
Keanu.
Quinoa.
But the film is about it's kind of like a supernatural film and a slasher,
Yeah.
kind of meshed.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying it's kind of about the hotel.
Yeah.
Because the hotel provides you with the supernatural.
Yeah.
What the hotel does to the family
Turns
provides
it
you into a slasher.
Yeah.
And the both are juxtaposed against each other so well that you're not really thinking about it when you're watching it.
Yeah.
You're not thinking, wow, this is confusing, a confusing blend of
Yeah.
films.
Do you know what they call a person that murders their family? A family annihilator.
You're joking.
I swear to God, yeah. It's not one of the most fucked up fucking names for some sort of killer, is it?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and that's what this movie pretty much is. This that the hotel does. It turns people into family annihilators.
Yeah.
It's fucked up though. It's not really,
And the innocent get killed and the guilty get absorbed by the
Yeah.
hotel, it seems.
Yeah, like, because Grady's like, I've always been here. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
love that scene. That's one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie.
Oh, then Jack in the picture near at the end is
Yeah,
also.
no, I just love the scene where Jack and Grady are talking in the bathroom. Do you remember that? Like, in just the back and forth, because Jack's still kind of like wary of what he's seeing.
Yeah.
And he's talking to Grady. He goes, "I've seen it in the papers. Yeah, I hate to break it to you, Mr. Grady, but you chopped up your wife and daughters and you killed yourself or shot yourself or something." And he goes, "No, sir." And he goes, "No, you used to be the caretaker here." And he's like, "No, sir, you're the caretaker here, sir. You've always been the caretaker."
Yeah.
And I was like, and that makes you think, like, is Jack a reincarnated guest from?
Oh, yeah, what's going on? Because obviously the
Yeah.
rules, physics has gone out the window.
Yeah.
So what? Yeah, exactly.
Or does he just get absorbed back into the history of the hotel?
Yeah, or
And that's
is the
why we
whole
see him.
is the story of the hotel reset every time he gets a new character?
Yeah.
Because the
What do you
bad.
think, like Jack Torrance is like Neo?
Yeah. Which brings you back to the appearance of Keanu Reeves.
Keanu.
Keanu.
I'm reading it, definitely Keanu.
But if you were to try and sell this film
Yeah.
to somebody, let's just say a film never existed, you don't have a book, you just have a screenplay.
Yeah.
I imagine it would be a tough sell because it sounds like you're trying to spin a lot of plates
Yeah.
from the outside, just from an overview of it. Because if somebody said to me, "I've never seen
Or
The
an
Shining,"
overlook of it.
yeah, because you're asking what the story is. Oh, I've never seen The Shining. What's it about? I'd be off for fuck's sake.
Yeah. But, like, it's in like, it's got all this cool symbolism in it, but at the end of the day, it's literally just a family go to stay in a haunted hotel, and the father goes insane.
Yeah.
If you want to know how to say The Shining,
Like if you needed a synopsis, like just
that's
a synopsis.
literally what the movie is in its bare bones. It's about a family that goes to an isolated hotel that ends up being haunted. The father goes insane.
Yes,
you know,
and The Shining is kind of expanded on in the second film. In the first film, it's like an extreme type of intuition.
Yeah.
So sometimes you look at someone's face and you
some
can't
people
tell what they're
shine more
thinking.
than others. No.
Some people shine more than others. Yeah.
Scat man, bitty.
But I think the intuition of Danny, he hadn't learned to weaponize it.
Yeah.
But it did at the same time keep him alive.
He didn't even know what it was. He thought it was an imaginary friend Tony. Lived in his mouth.
Yeah.
That's weird enough as it is. Like.
But that's it. And he was at a young enough age that you could just, again, willful imaginations of children.
Like I seen, like before seeing me one of the symbolisms, I tried to catch it, but I think I missed it. It was like seemingly like before Danny talks to Tony and asks him what's in The Shining, on his door is Dopey, I think, from the Seven Dwarves. Because Danny is Dopey, he's ignorant, he doesn't know, and when he knows, seemingly Dopey's gone off his door. And because he's no longer Dopey, he knows.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Right.
Seemingly that's one of the things that was in the room 237, but I didn't catch it the last time I watched because I think I looked away for a second and I looked back up and I wasn't bothered rewinding it.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of.
I'm just going to take that for granted.
Yeah,
absolutely. But that's what I mean. It would be fatiguing. It would be so fatiguing to watch a film that way.
Yeah.
And you know the way these days people like to spot the Easter eggs and the hints and the
Especially
nods
in the days
to
of Marvel and stuff.
Yeah, Marvel being a huge one. You know,
big proponent of an Easter egg.
Oh, huge, massive, and
which you've done since their comic books anyway.
Yeah, they really have. But this, I think, it would just get to a point where somebody like who's closest to Annie might go, dude.
Yeah, it'd be that guy, wouldn't it? It's like in scene 35, you look in the left-hand corner of the screen, you can see a rocket that is clearly faced eastward. Guess what? Where did the rocket go to the moon? Went east. Did it go to the moon all the way to the moon? I don't think so. I think it's like there's a soundstage also known as East Soundstage in Warner Brothers. And that's like, dude, you need to calm down.
You need to
calm down. I want to see ghosts and a haunted hotel.
Yeah.
I don't need to see.
I want to see a guy taking like a fly thousands of miles to get hit in the stomach with an axe. That's all I'm here for, like.
But it's so pointless.
Yeah,
so pointless.
So pointless.
And I think like when as I said to you, I watched the back and I was like, we're going to cut to 20 minutes, and I'm sure 10 minutes came out of his journey there.
Yes.
So like, oh my god. And he's like,
essentially what he could have been is the person who lets Danny know that he's not crazy.
Yeah.
That he has something that
he could have come back so much quicker without all those steps, ringing them and ringing back.
Yeah, and the ham radio
and all this and that. And so he's lying in bed and he's watching TV and he's on an airplane. Do we need to see him on the airplane? Do we need to see him on the air? I don't think so. We need to see him in the airport, maybe making the phone call to his friend to get the snow cat. That's important.
Yeah.
We don't need to see him on the airplane.
No.
Do we need to see him make 2 calls? No. Make one call and then hint at the second call.
We got that like shot from outside of the airplane. You know what I mean? Like we actually got
that's all you need. Like shot outside the airplane and show him in the airport.
Yeah.
That's it. You don't need to show anything else. Like you know what I mean?
God, no. You remember Snatch?
Yeah.
Where the guy like has to keep going back between America and England, and it was just him like taking 2 sleeps.
Dennis Farina.
And then it was just, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then he was coming back. It was just, they did it in like the most snappy ways because you don't
snatchy way.
But you don't need to feed it them. That character did end up being a bit pointless. I'll be a likable character.
Incredibly
and he did.
Well, he had a point at the start.
He had a point at the start.
Yeah.
And he showed Danny what he had, and it was a gift.
Mr. Torrance,
yeah.
Did you know your son's trying to bring in some outside interference into this situation? And he's like, no, I didn't know that. I love the look in Jack Nicholson's face there, and he's like, he's actually like, I actually didn't know that.
No,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's when he's starting to believe, I think, in his mind that he's not imagining this because he just got given information that he didn't know.
Yeah,
you know
that's a good point. Actually,
yeah, that's the thing about like in these scenes. The more he interacts with them, that's when he realizes, oh, I belong here, whatever in his mind.
He's let out of the pantry by one as well.
Yeah, exactly. Grady lets him out of the pantry, like you know what I mean. Like, and I think even before, because the more information he gets or the more assistance he gets, that's the more and more he gives into because
confirmation.
Because at first he just thought he was going insane.
Yeah, because maybe you're just standing in this bathroom alone.
Yeah,
talking to a shot.
And that's why he was like saying to Wendy, like, "Oh no, there was nothing there." Because if he believed in ghosts, he'd be like, "Let's get the fuck out of here. This place is haunted." It's smoking hot bitch in there, and now she's like half melted and moldy. I'm getting the fuck out of here. If you and Danny want to come, that's cool. If you're not, I'm outie. You know what I mean? But because he believed,
there was Johnny.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
he thought he was going insane. He denied it. But when he realised that...
But this was, again, nothing was ever his fault. Even
Yeah.
his own descent into madness.
Yeah.
He never took responsibility for
Well, it wasn't really his fault, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but he would never admit to anything being his fault.
He just gave into it because he was weak.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's it. And he's scary, but he's weak.
Yeah. And that's the thing about him, and that's how he ends up kind of dying in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what's his major weakness? His rage. And how does he get lost in the maze? Because he gets blinded by his own rage.
Yeah.
And he doesn't, like, you know what I mean? He gets lost literally in the maze, and the maze could maybe, like you say, symbolises his madness, because he gets lost in his own madness and ends up to his death or whatever, like, you know what I mean? And something you touched on before we went to the break, because I didn't want to jump into the climax, was that fucking bit of ingenuity by little Danny.
Yeah,
when he does
following his own footsteps.
When I was watching that, I was like, wouldn't have thought of it.
100% would not have thought
100% would have died in that maze.
Yeah,
terrible
absolutely.
sense of direction.
Yeah, exactly.
I've always said to Lorraine that, like, I play a lot of like apocalyptic games and stuff on Xbox and PlayStation. I'm like, I'm like, I'll get into like a horde of zombies. I'll kill them all, get lost, and die by 2 zombies. You know what I mean? I walk into and I go through like. I'm pretty sure how I die in the apocalypse would be my bad sense of direction.
I've actually often said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Even
I'd get lost and walk into a zombie. You know what I mean? Like,
I was always, those kind of games and there's like a little radar up the top left, and I'm just getting hunted down like a bitch by whoever I'm up against because I just can't approximate.
Yeah, and you're trying to look at the radar. It's like red dots, motherfucker.
Red dot, yeah, exactly.
Especially if it's a first-person shooter and you can't see behind you properly and shit.
God, yeah, no, that would be definitely my. That's it. Outsmarted by I know the kid was supposed to be 8 or something.
8 or 9 or something.
But just to have him die of exposure.
Yeah. That look in his face, though.
Yeah, absolutely. But that was it. Like, I mean, he had the hate.
Frozen in a state of rage forever.
Frozen inside of him, like, the complete and total. He never had any regret. Like, I'm sure dying of exposure is a horrible way to go, but he took the hate with him right to the grave.
One thing I actually have to admit from, like, I've been watching that 1970s, 1980s kind of cinema lately, like filling in some movie blanks, like some classics that I didn't get to see or haven't seen or I'm just getting around to seeing. One thing I have to say that modern cinema is missing in comparison to classical cinema is the comb over.
Yeah.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
I seen that guy the other day in a movie from like the 70s. And that comb over was not fooling anybody. He had like 4 hairs coming across, and I'm like, what's the point?
Yeah.
I want to see a completely bald Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
God, actually, that is an uncomfortable thought.
Yeah, even though he would have made a great Wolverine back in the day, wouldn't he?
Jesus,
fucking
he
hell, especially in this movie. Yeah.
My God, that era, Jack Nicholson would have been phenomenal.
With them locks and everything.
Oh, absolutely. Just that intensity as well.
I miss turtlenecks too. Not enough actors. Chris Evans wears a good turtleneck.
Chris Evans. Yeah. He wears a good turtleneck.
He wears a good turtleneck.
There's something I could say about Chris now.
He's not a shellfish guy. People are going to come at me. I know they're amphibious. Playing with the shell. Talking about their shell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Come on, people.
Jokes get funnier when you deconstruct them. That's just a fact.
Yeah, it's a fact.
But
I want to deconstruct my deconstruction.
This is it, the Stanley Kubrick joke.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so I want to tell that joke 62 more times.
Yeah.
And then I want you to deconstruct it for several hours.
And I want you to find it funnier.
And I want you to find the hidden symbolism in my joke. Yeah. Am I talking about a turtle or am I talking about Apollo 11?
Ooh.
You tell me.
Yeah.
You tell me.
Obviously the moon landing.
Clearly the moon landing. Because why? Because shells are oval in... the moon is also... What's a turtle in Latin? I think it's moon.
You know what's a fake fish? A turtle.
Yeah, yeah. And like, what's Luna, which is moon, means lies. And actually, did you ever hear that one from the flat Earth thing? The guy is like, NASA is like nearly identical to the Hebrew word meaning lie, which is Nasha. He goes, it's kind of close, but you know what I'm getting at. I know what they're getting. I'm like, ooh. Painful.
Yeah. And I wouldn't mind, like, X amount of 100 languages. So you just like cycle through them until you find, and the closest you could get was Nasha.
Yeah. Do you think that guy watches The Shining?
Oh God!
Imagine the simplism. He'd be loving that shit.
Oh yeah, everything meant flat Earth, like.
Yeah, it's just like the Overlook. If you look at it, it's like it's overlooking. And you can't overlook a globe because it's obviously flat because it's overlooking the Earth. Yeah. So the Earth is obviously flat. Infinite plane, hashtag infinite plane. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But like back to The Shining. But like, so no. What did you think of like we've already touched on Jack's Descent into Madness, Danny and The Shining, Wendy's performance, or sorry, Shelley Duvall's performance, Wendy, the reasons why, you know, she kind of came across a bit annoying, because more than likely it was the actor facing real exhaustion that just happened to be caught on screen. Like literally, as she has proclaimed afterwards, that's literally her descending into her own state of madness that actually stayed with her, like, you know what I mean?
God, like.
But like, if there is any movie that has stayed, is the way it stayed with Shelley Duvall, like any movie that's really stayed in the consciousness, like The Shining over the past 4 years, like I'm unsure, because like if you look at it, I said to you, like there's a movie like that documentary, Room 237, it's only from 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. Like
this shit, it's not like it was deconstructed for 5 years, for 10 years, and it was forgotten about and came back. For the past 40 years, like a spotlight or a microscope or a magnifying glass, whatever, has been shined on this fucking movie. And like, I was just going to say that, like, do you think that like any other movies kind of have the same kind of, do you think that's the problem with modern movies? I know because they're modern, they haven't got a chance to age, but like there's very few movies nowadays that have the symbolism or the hidden meanings.
Also, like these days, a lot of it has been done, so it's harder and harder to break that glass ceiling. That's why I think like something like the Blair Witch Project, love or hate it, the found footage thing, it'll always have that. But I think in 1980, I think she broke so many glass ceilings that people get into horror, they realize it has been the Black Sabbath or the Led Zeppelin or something, just something that paved the way. And it will always have that mystique about it, and as time goes on and as we lean into more tropes and it gets harder and harder to find something new, I think it is I think it's a placeholder that you see people wearing Shining t-shirts all of the time, the eyes inside of the and the yellow the yellow
or the carpet and a tie or
exactly
something,
I think it's just, I think it just cemented its place and the rise of the modern horror genre. But so like what do I know? A Quiet Place or something like that could be talked about for years to come.
But, which I think it will be.
Yeah, because
that was so new.
Exactly, and I think that broke a glass. I thought the way you use silence, we've talked about it before. So I do think there is ground been broken, but that film, it took so much away from it added so much to what had come before it, and it meshed so many genres and had so much symbolism that it's going to be hard to top.
Do you think the sign of a real classic is how many kind of films are similar to it that come out after?
I do think like films that you could argue wouldn't have existed. And that's why I said the Black Sabbath or whatever. You know, there's just these bands.
I know The Shining wasn't the first haunted house movie, like not even close. Like, you know what I mean. But it was kind of the haunted house movie that took it to the mainstream, if you will. Even though like it brought in double its money or something. We checked earlier on the cheat sheet. But like, look at A Quiet Place, like you mentioned a second ago. That was a sensory deprivation horror. And look how many sensory deprivation horrors that come out afterwards. You know what I mean?
Or even
Don't Breathe 1 and 2, Bird Box.
Bird Box where you can't see.
Or the girl that's in her house and she's deaf or she's blind. And
Hush,
you know what I mean? Like, so I was saying like Quiet Place is kind of a good for modern. Like, look at The Conjuring. How many movies that came out similarly to The Conjuring afterwards? Insidious was James Wan as well. When Conjuring is a haunted house movie, Insidious is a possession movie. Cut yourself on that.
Sorry, I'm embarrassed myself.
But this is kind of both, isn't it? In a sense. Well, no, this is, you wouldn't call it really a possession movie, when you know.
No, because it's not like something completely takes over. It allows you to lean into
it's
the
kind of like Amityville Horror or something.
Exactly. That's a good example.
With the Amityville came before this, 1976.
Yeah, the original Amityville, God.
So this is kind of like Amityville to the 10th degree because
that's it.
Because Amityville, didn't they have the whole, or is that just in the remake?
Of course, I had the family, the guy who kills his family, and then another family moves in, and this guy who starts to want to kill his family.
No, that's based on the Ronnie DeFeo murders. But I'm talking about, do you know the Ryan Reynolds remake where they talk about Ketchum, the guy who seemed to kill all these Native Americans in that house back in the 1600s? Was that in the original with James Brolin? Because I haven't seen the original in ages, so like I'm just saying, because like if you're saying with the Indian thing, because maybe when was The Shining book written? Because
that's a good question.
Because I'm just thinking like maybe Amityville Horror, Ronnie DeFeo, inspired Amityville Horror. Did Amityville Horror inspire Stephen King? Stephen King wrote The Shining. And Stephen King inspires Stanley Kubrick to make
absolutely, or he takes it. That's it. Well, it's one hand washes the other. This takes this, it builds on it, and then gives it to a genius who just takes it and brings it to a whole new height, and especially like cinematic brilliance. Which Amityville didn't have. So yeah, I suppose it's fair to say that even The Shining,
Iconic movie in its own right, though.
iconic movie in its own right, yeah, and that's what I mean. I think, and even like I think the reason I don't think The Shining will be surpassed was even in 40 years' time, when the modern films are 40 years old, we're still going to be talking about The Shining, which will be 80 years old. It's still just building prestige.
Like, dude, this movie's older than both of us. Yes. And you're super old.
I'm super old.
Super old, right?
Really, really old.
Like super old.
It's
like unnecessarily old.
Unnecessarily old.
But like, and we're still talking about the movie.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like this movie came out 7 years, nearly a decade before I was born, right? Like 5 or 6 years after you were born, right? But it's like 2 decades after you were born. But no, like I'm just talking about like, this is a sign of a true blue fucking classic horror like icon. When you have guys that weren't even born, like when the movie came out, are talking about it, like, and love it, and like we're talking about it 4 decades later, like literally, like, you know what I mean? It's 41 years since The Shining came out. We're still talking about it. There's still hidden messages. I'm sure there's still hidden meanings. I'm sure there's still forums all over the internet talking about this and this and this, and there's still people breaking it down. And like, I don't think there's any other movie that really has that attached to it in the same way. Like, I love Halloween, I love The Thing, and has all its qualities. But I think it's the hidden meanings and like the different layers to the story, and maybe the whole thing, how it varied so much, and how the person that created it hated it, and there's just so much things about it, The Shining, and maybe that's why it's so iconic. You know what I mean? I just don't think like there's many films that actually have that, especially in the horror genre. I think that's why 40 years later, 2 dudes in fucking Ireland are talking about it still. You know what I mean?
And 40 years later from now, people will be talking about it still.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. It raised the bar, I think, of what can be done. Of a horror film not really having to be a very 2-dimensional idea. That essentially everything is just storytelling, and you can use the thriller or the action or the fantasy or whatever. And the horror is actually no different. It just might be a little bit darker.
And it's like we don't have to explain everything anymore.
No,
I want to put stuff in there.
That's an excellent point.
You know what I mean? Like, because like, what's the furry doing? He's obviously blowing that dude. But like, what the fuck is like? What's that scene all about? You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's just like, it's like the guy is like, oh, it's a wonderful time here, and he's like up like, what's his story? You know, it's like as you said, it's so imagery heavy, and it's like sometimes it's like it's like the mystery is the horror. The unknown is the horror.
That's it.
It goes back to that.
And that's what I'm saying. When you don't need high body counts. It's all like horror is essentially it's a very comfortable way to feel uncomfortable. And this does the shock, the sudden kind of thing that happens, or the slow burn, and it does something that exists in between the two, like when Jack's walking up the stairs towards Wendy, and it's just got so many palettes of discomfort, and you're able to just watch it from the comfort of your home or you're safe, and that's what horror is. That's what I love about it. And this film just did that, and I realized it can be really complex and it can be really, really rewarding. And I think it introduced a lot of art to, and it'll always hold a special place for people who love horror, simply because of that. It's a very artistic film. Compared to whatever, you know, like some of the sleepover, you know, massacre kind of films.
Sleepaway
Camp Massacre, for example, like, which is great and I enjoy it, but it was very cut and paste.
And that's like, it's like, that's how you know Friday the 13th is a classic horror, because it spawned so many imitations.
Oh, absolutely,
That's what I'm saying with The Shining and Quiet Place, with you touched on, like, that maybe turn into a classic horror because it spawned so many similar movies. You know what I mean? The sensory deprivation, it's like it's nearly its own fucking subgenre.
Oh, absolutely, you know what I mean? It is. Remember, just vampires made a comeback for nobody asked for, but everybody seemed to ask for somehow. The
even
paradox
some of them
of
sparkled, they hear.
Oh God,
sparkled.
Ugh.
Sparkling vampires.
We make them Batman to reward them.
But he's turned into a good actor now.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he takes acting very seriously.
That Battison's a good actor, though he is. But like, no, before we get the fuck out here, do you have anything else you want to say about The Shining? And like, what do you think? Like, Stephen King feels all these years later? And you know he was heavily involved in the TV miniseries that we haven't seen. No, I haven't seen. You've seen.
Oh, I've seen it once years ago.
But what do you think now? I know he still holds a lot of contempt to Stanley Kubrick, whatever. But do you think, when it comes to a person like Stephen King who readily sells his work and it's made, some of it's terrible, like not the books, do you think he should hold such a gripe when he actually made a masterpiece, even though
I think when it's your intellectual property and it was your vision, and I think of something that if you felt it betrayed, I think you're entitled to your opinion.
No, but like my point about his opinion is that he's had so many things that have been adapted from his works that are shit.
Yeah.
Not like just to say, like, you know what I mean, not to mince my words or whatever, but a lot of the stuff that's being made from his works, the books themselves probably are really good. I haven't read a lot of them, but the movies or the TV shows, whatever, a lot of them are shit though, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this movie's a masterpiece.
Stand and stuff like
that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So even though this is so different, could he not just say, like, I appreciate that, the fact that it's a masterpiece?
Yeah.
Considering so many people have made so much shit from my work.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? I'm sure he loves John Carpenter because John Carpenter made a lot of good movies from his work.
I'd say when he hears the praise for it, it probably doesn't ever feel like praise for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Even as we touched on earlier, it still says Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the difference with Dr. Sleep, the sequel. As
Stephen
I said,
King's Dr. Sleep.
It says Stephen King's even on the fucking the movie or whatever, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. Maybe Stephen King must have had more of a hand in it.
Well, when I was watching a little bit behind the scenes stuff, Stephen King was sitting in the room with Mike Flanagan, and they were both kind of talking about. So obviously he was very. I guess the intellectual property, you're probably still stung from 40 years ago that he wanted to at least be in the room.
Yeah.
And be happy with everything because it was probably a story that he genuinely did care about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like. I mean, I think he has to respect what it has become.
Yeah.
Even if he doesn't feel involved.
Yeah.
You just have to think like, wow, there's like 10 horrors that every horror fan loves.
Yeah.
Like almost like there's The Thing, there's Hellraiser, there's The Shining. There's Halloween.
Yeah.
There's Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
And these are just like films that we almost universally love. And you have to respect that, especially if you're the master of horror. You have to respect that.
He should, in my mind, if I was Stephen King, I'd be like, it's an alternate version. It's like an alternate reality. I'd dig that. I would. Like if I wrote a book or whatever, right? You know what I mean? Hashtag Urban Ones. But like
hashtag shameless plug.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like if I wrote a book and I like couldn't get it made the way I wanted to, and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to spend your money. I'm going to be happy. And in my mind, this is an alternate universe.
Yeah.
And this is just what happens is if like whoever you are wrote River of Bones or whatever, you know what I mean, or whatever.
Like evil Superman and Brightburn and stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly.
It's not Christopher Reeves.
Yeah.
It's not. Like, it's complete distortion of it.
You know what I mean? Like, I think you just need to compartmentalize or separate.
I think that's a good point. Yeah, maybe I'm sure it probably has to a degree over time, but
because he's had enough success. You know what I mean? Like
he's had a touch of it, all right.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's like no need to be
save some for the rest of us. You know.
But so no, do you have anything else you want to say about The Shining before we get the fuck out?
No, I think we've covered The Shining. We can get the fuck out of here.
He just kind of paused there weird at the end.
I was thinking,
I was like, shit, is he going to say something else here?
I was thinking to myself, like, we touch upon this, and I was like, oh my god, if I say something about symbolism, I'm going to shoot myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm so symbolismed out.
Yeah. So right now, we're going to be back later on today with the second episode of this franchise Friday, and that's Dr. Sleep. And so Noel, we get the fuck out of here.
Get the fuck out of here.
All right, folks. This is Invasion of Polly Snatchers. I'm your host, Vincent Green.
I'm your host, Noel John Dewey.
We got Cara Mack in the back, and we will be back not too long from now. That was The Shining. That was the Overlook Hotel. Here's Vinny.
Here's me. I'm here.
Son of a bitch. See you next time, folks.